My cheating wife announced she was 5 weeks pregnant after I returned from a 2-month work trip, then refused to do a paternity test, saying I'm insulting her, so I divorced her. It's been 15 years, and she is still harassing me, saying I knocked on her and abandoned our daughter. Now they came to my 9-year-old son, and I lost it. Buckle up. 15 years ago, I was 25 and finishing my contract, and my then GF of 3 years, Natalie, was acting increasingly strange. I came back from a 2-month assignment and was prepared to break up with Natalie. She came by and gave me the good news that she was pregnant. I asked how far along she was. She said 5 weeks, so I broke it off with her and told her she needed to do better at math. She refused the breakup and insisted the baby was mine, so I told her the following. 1. A paternity test, and 2. If the child was mine, we can talk about financial support and custody arrangements with lawyers. She refused both and told everyone we both knew that I was a deadbeat for knocking her up and leaving her. I told everyone I was on a 2-month assignment when she conceived, but a few insisted that, for the sake of decency, I house her and give her limited support. I consulted a lawyer about this mess, and the lawyer made it very clear that any overt support I give could be seen as me taking responsibility, so I told these friends that, and most dropped it, except one guy, who again insisted that charity couldn't be used as a legal cudgel like that. I asked him if he believed that he could house her. He agreed to drop it after that. The child was born, and not even going to do the whole. She didn't look like me because most babies are born with squished faces, and all I saw were the pictures she sent me with messages like, "Emma wants to know where daddy is," and SHD. She still refused to take any paternity tests. But her constantly showing up with that baby got to the point where I filed an RO. Fun fact, in my state, a permanent RO is not, in fact, permanent. It is 2 effing years long. The only way to make it longer is if there was a violent crime associated with it, and apparently, bugging someone with a baby that's not theirs is not a violent crime. So my life for the last 14 years has been me renewing the RO every 2 years because, once it clears, Natalie shows up again with my not child. I did eventually find a nice girl and get married, and now I have a 9-year-old son, Henry. My wife, Kim, is well aware of Natalie and Emma. When the cycle begins again, I always say the same thing. 1. Paternity test. 2. Once paternity is proven, I will take custody and get financial support set up. Natalie always refuses and says both are insulting. Recently, the cycle started again, and this time Emma showed up first. She approached my son during a school event, a visit to the zoo, and said, "Hi, I'm your big sister Emma." Henry knew about stranger danger and ran away to a teacher. I had to have a very painful talk with the teachers and parents that were at the event about my relationship with Emma and Natalie and how Emma was never my daughter. I even called her my daughter once or twice in the conversation. After the group disbanded, one of the mothers confronted me and said that while Natalie was in the wrong, telling this poor child, I was her father and calling her my daughter was mocking this situation. I kind of get where she's coming from. I just can't help this child. And the honest truth is that playing light of the 2-year cycles is the closest I can get to finding peace in the situation. Edit. To answer the repeated question in my state, the mother has to start the petition for the father to be established and the test to start. There is no instance where a father can start the petition. There was a chance to do this when Emma was born, but the window was exactly 1 month, and I was much too focused on the RO, not thinking the paternity angle would bite me in the butt. One last time, to everyone saying, just ask for custody. That'll force a DNA test. It literally can't be done. I have been through this enough with a lawyer and have consulted with other lawyers. There are laws protecting children, and a lot of them exist for good reason. I'll explain it the way my lawyer explained it. Imagine there's a woman who ran from an abusive ex. She finds out after she escapes that she's pregnant. She gives birth, never puts the ex on the birth certificate, and never tries to file for support because she wants to get as far away from him as possible. He finds out years later and tries to rope her back into using the child as leverage. She can just say no, and the state has to let it go. There is, however, a provision if the father was involved enough to know when the birth was, that he could submit his DNA to the state within 31 days of birth as a potential father. But that time has long passed. The law is designed this way on purpose. In the eyes of the family court, I am a random person, and I was never claimed by Emma. If you think the state wants all children to be claimed by fathers, and will gladly submit any DNA test whenever any potential father shows up. Find a random single mom, call the family court, and say you want to claim her child. I am tired of everyone acting like all I needed to do was fill out one sheet of paper, and this nightmare would end. Please just call a lawyer for a free consultation or post on legal advice and ask them. It doesn't work that way. Relevant comments. Zalem. What really bothers me here is that an RO was in place, but Emma was confident enough to know she was approaching the right kid. Madness. And at some point, it becomes draining, and the little girl is going to need some serious therapy after everything is said and done. Why don't you go to the courthouse and make her do one so it can come to an end? Oh, please reply. Because Natalie does not consent to it, and she said she's not seeking any sort of court-ordered support. So the court just shrugs and says, get a protective order. Loves Garrett's. You could get a court-ordered DNA test. Her claims are slanderous. You could take her to court to prove paternity. Opie's reply. Natalie has long since stopped calling me out for being a deadbeat online. She prefers to show up in person, asking if I want to meet our daughter. The last time the cops confronted her about this, she claimed that she only wanted me to act as a paternal father figure to her child. It really depends on the cops that show up. Dappled turnoff 0A, Enta. I can understand why someone would think that this is callous, but it's your business, and you've got every right to use humor to try to deal with it. Don't say that to Emma, considering that she believes your mom. That would be pretty rude. Now, the burning question. How did she find Henry while he was on a field trip? Opie's reply. We suspect Natalie befriended a mom at the school and got a class schedule, then dropped Emma off at the zoo to be with her brother. Since we are unrelated, I have no idea what school Emma goes to or who Natalie's friends are. We are being very reactive to the situation, but because there are children involved, my lawyer said that that's the best we can do, and any type of investigation into Natalie beyond where to send legal paperwork could make it seem like mutual contact and hurt any future rows. See still 5D4-27. I feel sorry for Emma because she's been brainwashed by her mother, and that's all she knows. She's innocent in this world, yet her world and her sense of identity seem likely to come apart one day. It must be a lie, not just because of the timing, but because the DNA test is such an easy and obvious way to prove it if she's telling the truth. Opie's reply. The offer stays open until Emma turns 18. If she wants to contact me after she turns 18, I will offer Emma herself the DNA test and, depending on the results, act accordingly. Update. 2 days after the original post, I got off the phone with my attorney. We have a preliminary hearing on the new RO this week. We will most likely be issued a temporary RO, and then after that, another hearing for the permanent RO. CPS is investigating Natalie and Emma's living situation. The teacher's report held a lot of weight, and my lawyer thinks that this might actually be a way to end the madness now. In family court, for minors, there exists something that's like a temporary, court-appointed guardian. I think the term is guardian ad litem, who is only a guardian for legal purposes and procedures and decisions of such, including medical. If the family court appoints a guardian for Emma, we can ask this temporary guardian for the DNA test and get this put to ground. The madness might actually have an ending in sight. Adding here, I feel like I need to explain the relationship I had with Natalie all those years ago. When I got back from my 2-month assignment, I was already dead set on breaking up with her. Oh wait, I'm pregnant was never going to make me marry her. In fact, I doubted she was pregnant for several weeks. In the last year of our relationships, several red flags appeared in her behavior, ranging from demanding I check in with her while at work, only hanging out with friends with her present, to extreme bouts of jealousy if I ever seemed too friendly with women, including waitresses. I was in a line of work that demanded my being away for long stints, which she hated, but also kept me out of her reach for long periods of time. I think it was halfway through that last year that I realized that when I was away, I did not miss her. In fact, I was relieved to plop into a cot and fall asleep after long hours of work without thinking about her. When the pregnancy turned out to be real, I made it clear that, with a paternity test, I would pay support, split custody, be a co-parent, and nothing more. She wanted me to be her husband. No question was asked. No test, just pure blind faith and devotion to her and the child. The test, she insisted, was insulting. There was never going to be a relationship, and there was no relationship to salvage with Natalie. On the advice of the first attorney I hired, the deal was no test, no contact. Relevant comments, the crown and anchor, that poor girl. She'll grow up either believing Opie or having a deadbeat dad. Or she'll grow up knowing the truth and knowing that her mom is trying to game the system and get money from a guy who is not the father of her child. Either way, she's going to have a lot of stuff to work out in therapy one day. Frankly, I can't believe Opie does not have any legal recourse to force a paternity test. You'd think there'd be one judge who was so annoyed with the constant restraining orders that he would have ordered a paternity test to rid the court system of this bulge. Dizzy I-5E-257 replies, also, that mom probably has a serious mental health struggle. She's kept this going for 15 years. A man in black adds, she only has to win a concession once to get child support garnished and start getting his wages garnished. That's why she's doing it. She thinks she'll get a payout for back child support and other benefits off his military pay and pension, insurance, etc., to which Opie replies, this angle is actually very likely. I will bring this up with my lawyer. Also, good guess on the military pension. Summer Raquel, I'm surprised you can't sue her for harassment or potentially defamation. It sounds like she's now putting your actual child at risk, as well as escalating overall. Hopefully she doesn't start resorting to more dangerous tactics, but you may want to look into further protections if possible. Opie's reply. This bit of harassment with a CPS report and the new RO should, if we are lucky, be the kill shot we need. Curious management for slightly downvoted comment. All you had to do was call the police when she violated the restraining order. That would have nailed her flaps to the wall full stop. You want peace. Don't get a useless RO. Have the police enforce that SHD. That lunatic is no match for the police. Opie's reply. She never violates the RO as she harasses until one is issued. That's why we issue them to get peace. Curious management for then asks the Opie. And it works for the entire duration of the SO. Not even a hint of contact. To which Opie replies. The first 2 times she broke the RO, she was punished accordingly. After that, she waited until the RO expired. Asleep all of 165, the most downvoted comment in the thread. I kind of feel like an Opie. Troubles have been karma for how he treated Natalie. Her behavior is totally unhinged, for sure. But if he had broken up with her, when he first felt like he didn't actually want to be with her, instead of stringing her along for half a year, and then basically accusing her of cheating on him, the Nodder wouldn't even exist. Essentially, this post is Opie admitting that Opie knows this child is his. But he's refused to acknowledge her unless his ex admits to cheating, thereby justifying him leaving her while she was pregnant, and trying to reduce his possible financial culpability. Opie's reply. The nature of my job back then meant I was on assignment for weeks at a time, sometimes as long as 2 months. The amount of time I was home for the half year was small, and not all of it was consecutive. Also, in relationships, there are moments when you realize you aren't happy. You don't miss the other person, but it's still a bit of a fog you're working yourself through. Half-started conversation about where we see ourselves, and seeing if there was anything left that was dropped, etc. I'd like to believe I wasn't codependent then, but lack of sleep and lack of stretches of contact made it to the point where longing for normalcy meant longing for even the bad. Familiarity is a effing killer. That last trip was one where, during it, I steeled myself that when I got home, I was going to break up. Also, we were never going to be in a relationship afterwards. In the past 14 years, all of the friends we had as mutuals have worked their way out of my contact list. I don't see her parents, and she doesn't see mine. We have no social circles in common anymore. What does she have to lose by claiming me as the father and me taking the test? Public stigma. I wouldn't be talking to her friends. She can tell them whatever the EFF she wants. She could brag about how I caved. I wouldn't know, and I most likely wouldn't dispute it if I were the father.